let's talk about some of the players with the most to gain, not weight, but just the most to gain in terms of the depth chart, in terms of playing time, in terms of, what this fall camp is going to mean for their impact this season. And there are a few overlaps there, right, with some of the guys that we mentioned that did gain some weight. But Derek Moore, to me, is one that just comes to mind instantly. I have him as my breakout player of the year on defense. So I think at some point he's going to be a guy that really emerges as a high-level edge rusher on this team. But, I'll list a couple more names. Peyton O'Leary, I think he has a lot to gain. I could see him hardly playing this season. I could also see him having a decently big role. He has to continue to prove himself, not only in practice, but he said his goal this year is to get in there on Saturdays and play. Darius Henderson, guy from Arizona State, joined the team in an official capacity this summer. He's going to have to come in and earn that left tackle job. You think he's talented. He's had like a late round grade in the NFL draft after this season. He needs to win a starting job here. Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl director, has 7 Michigan upperclassmen offensive linemen on the watch list right now for the Senior Bowl. There could be backups that are playing / practicing down in Mobile next spring. Ladarius Henderson, obviously one of those. But Greg Crippen at center, I think with Jim Harbaugh listing him as one of the 2 starters there along with Drake Nugent, he has a lot to gain. Could he just emerge and take that job? Ernest Hausman at linebacker, Nebraska transfer. Every corner, I think, probably has to be on there, maybe outside of Will Johnson. Got to get him healthy. And then Darius Clemens, maybe the most to gain out of anybody. And you could throw Tyler Morris in there, who also, you look at the video Michigan football posted today, he just looks so much like Ronnie Bell, wearing the number 8. The way he caught one ball along the sideline, it looked like yesterday, just Ronnie Bell clone. But Darius Clemens, to me, could end up being a huge impact player on this team. But he also kind of has, I would consider him one of those wild cards where it's like, maybe he plays sparingly. He's at the back end of the rotation. Maybe he's the 4th or 5th wide receiver this year. Could also see him having a few hundred yards and, a few dozen catches. So there's some variance there with what, I think are the possibilities for Darius Clemens. But, I'm sure we have some overlap. But who has the most to gain for you during fall camp? What guys really need this time? And they probably know it, too, when you go into a fall camp. You kind of know that this is your time to emerge. And they got a full month, to prove themselves.
I want to start with Clemens because I was thinking about it here, and I had some other guys in mind, but I really do think that Clemens might be the one when we're talking about the offensive side of the ball because, there's a very real scenario in play. Like, I think the top of this depth chart is relatively set. I think it's Cornelius Johnson, it's Roman Wilson, and I'm pretty sure it'll wind up being Tyler Morris in the slot. So all of a sudden, you're talking best case scenario in that setup that Clemens is your number 4 wide receiver. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because of the size, maybe it's because of the measurables, the long speed. Michigan fans have kind of slid him back onto the pedestal in a similar way that they did, with Andrew Anthony. And there's the first mention of him on the Thursday podcast of the season. But
I guess he's looking good down in Norman, from what I'm reading.
He's always looked good, but when the time comes. But for Clemens, it's going to be, I can see a scenario where really his time is next year, just based on numbers and how this depth chart currently looks. And, from that perspective, if he's not on the field as one of their top 3 or 4 guys, fans are going to start wondering why the hell Darius Clemens isn't playing more. Fans are going to start wondering, Cornelius Johnson's going to have a drop in a game against, at Nebraska or at, Minnesota, and fans are going to want him to be benched, and he won't be benched, and people will wonder where Darius Clemens is. And, I just wonder how a guy handles that. And because so much of playing at this level is, tuning out the noise, keeping your head down, keep putting in the work. And Clemens, like I said, I think there's a path for him to be, a potential starter or a starting caliber guy on this offense, but I don't know. He's still a true sophomore, and I don't know if this is the time yet. I think next year might be where the opportunity is a little more wide open. But with a big camp, he's going to give himself a chance. But again, people don't want to hear it, but Peyton O'Leary is going to push him too. And I could see a scenario where maybe your top four is, Johnson, Johnson, Wilson, Morris, O'Leary, and all of a sudden it's, do you sulk about that, or do you keep putting in the work and get yourself on the field? And we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, I mean, Clemens has all the tools. It's just a matter of when it all comes together, not if for him. And what it means for how he handles that, I think is something I'm looking at keeping an eye on.
And by the way, too, I mean, from everything we've heard, he's been working extremely hard this offseason.
Yes.
He looked at spring ball as a huge opportunity for him. I think he's looking at fall camp, from what we've picked up, as a very, very big opportunity for him, understanding that some snaps are going to be out there, right? There's no Ronnie Bell on this team, and he's a guy that came in as a top 100 recruit. And, there's the photo up right there. That was his first spring game last spring, over a year ago. And he was extremely impressive. I mean, we were talking about him as a guy that could play early, and he did, quite a bit. He didn't get any targets really in significant portions of games, but he was kind of in there in the first half of the season in the rotation, even in big games at Iowa. And, some of those games in the first half, maybe 2/3 of the season, before it kind of dropped off a little bit. They seemed to tighten up the rotation. But no, I think that he's definitely one of the guys I'm most intrigued about during fall camp. Any other names that stand out to you?
I mean, just quick hitters on offense. I would say Tavier Dunlap. That's a guy. You're a junior now in a wide open number 3 running back race. If not now, like, when is it going to happen for him? And I kind of would lean that it's probably not going to happen for him. To be frank. Any of these guys on the offensive line, Trente Jones, I thought played well a little, towards the latter half of the middle part of last season before he got injured.
Trente's a good one. Yeah.
He loses a job, and now he's back in competition. There are 4 guys for 2 tackle spots. So we'll see what happens there. A defensive guy, I mean, anyone at cornerback has a lot to gain. I actually think that Michael Barrett probably has a lot to gain from a strong fall camp, even though it is his 6th year. Ernest Hausman is coming on strong, and I think that Ernest Hausman is ready to take a job, like as soon as the season opener. So, there are spots everywhere. I mean, for a team that has so much that is known about it already, there is a lot of guys where I don't want to say they're facing a do or die situation, because injuries could always thrust you into a bigger role, but there's a lot on the line for a lot of these guys still. And that's what you want. Like, you want that iron sharpening iron, because it's gonna help build your team's culture, heading into a year where you have big aspirations.
Yeah, a couple other guys I'd add too. Matthew Hibner, Marlon Klein. Those guys, are they going to get in the rotation? It's not just, the top 2 guys, Colston Loveland and AJ Barner. But yeah, there are plenty of guys kind of in that second, third string. I mean, you mentioned Tavier Dunlap, maybe 6th or 7th string. But, that could move up and gain some snaps this year.